Hey everyone, and welcome back to NDC, and layout is everything in SwiftUI. Today we'll be breaking down stacks, spacers, and dividers, which are some essential tools for building clean, polished, and professional designs. By the end, you'll not only know how they work, but also how to optimize layouts for performance with lazy stacks, as well as how to customize and really align your different stacks exactly the way you want to. So let's go ahead and dive on in. So really quickly on the right side of the screen here, I'm giving an example of using a VStack, HStack, dividers, and spacers to make a profile card, but we're going to be going over each of those elements today. Of course, feel free to use the timestamps if you do want to skip ahead, but we're going to be talking about the stacks first and then their customization. So the first stack that most people use is the VStack. So this allows us to take any of our SwiftUI views, so any content that we want to show on the screen, images, buttons, text, etc. And we're actually going to be able to organize them vertically. Now, as we add elements, so I'm just going to add some text just so we can kind of see how it works. As we add elements within these stacks, for the VStack, the topmost element is going to be the one that is kind of at the top of the VStack. So you'll see what I mean in a second. If I add another one that says middle and another text that says bottom, on our phone screen on the right here, we can see top, middle, and bottom in that order. If I were to instead make bottom the first one, you can see how it sequentially shows and renders these different views. If we were to instead do an HStack, this represents things horizontally. So if we were to change this text and we can do, first, second, you'll see that as we add things, it's instead doing it from left to right. So in the case we have first, second, third, first is all the way on the left, and as we add them, they get pushed to the right. Again, if I were to rearrange this, we can see that it does keep things in that sequential order. So VStack up and down, HStack left and right, and finally we have the ZStack, which if you are familiar with any kind of layering software like Canva or Photoshop, this is how you can actually add elements on top of one another. ZStacks are really great for cards if you're displaying like maybe a shadow behind something or like an element behind something or background, right? So if we were to add this rectangle here, and I'm just going to use the autofill really quickly to have our little representation. If I were to add text after this rectangle, I'm just going to add like hello world, we can see that the text is going on top. So for the ZStack, the top kind of components, so the first components are the backmost layer. So this would essentially, this view would be like element 0. This would then be element 1. If we were to swap these and I paste the text back in, it's now behind the rectangle. So you can use ZStack to layer things on top of one another. Even if we wanted to, add some more text here, you notice it's going to get a little bit cursed. I'll zoom in a little bit here. But with the ZStack, it's kind of putting everything on top of one another. So try your best not to have text on top of text or elements that may be clipping on top of another one. Otherwise, it might not look the greatest. But what if I wanted to have multiple things on my card? What if I want to have hello world, my name, etc.? We can actually use a combination of stacks. So within this ZStack, we can see with the braces, this is everything it's holding. We can go ahead and add another stack. So maybe within this hello world here, make sure we have the braces encapsulating it properly. I wanted to add like another text that says like, my name is. Now that it renders, we can see that we're utilizing this vertical stack to complete our card. What if, my name is, and I want to have an emoji for my name, and I want it to appear to the right? Well, we can combine stacks within stacks within stacks. You can see as we start to really combine these stacks, we get full control of our layout. So just to review, we have a ZStack that's creating this, rectangle that we're using as a card. We then have the VStack, which is combining the hello world, then putting the my name is on the next line. Within the my name is, I'm then using an HStack to display the text and then that SF image. So you can combine all of these stacks together to make the perfect layout for you. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about customization before we go into dividing and spacing. We can actually add argument brackets to our stacks. Let's talk about some of the kind of customization for the VStack first. What we can do is we can add alignment. And so what alignment's going to do is going to change how the child views are aligned relative to each other. So the child or children views would be represented by basically everything within these braces. So these three texts would kind of be the children of the VStack. And what we can do is we can use dot notation, but we can see we have center, leading, trailing, and just like with text design software, we can actually change this. So if I were to change this to leading, you'll notice our text shifts over to the left. Now it only goes a certain distance. If we actually quickly, for demonstration purposes, add a background color. So I'm just going to do color.green, a little bit of opacity. So it's not like too bold. We can see here that our VStack's actually pretty reactive. So it's actually going from the very start of our text, or the space that our view is occupying, to the end. So if I have I'm fine, thank you for asking, by the way, as I add that space that the view is taking, it's going to expand or kind of contract, right? And it's only going to take up as much space as it needs. Let's also take a look at trailing. It's going to push everything over to the right. So think of these like your text design software. We can also include spacing. Now the way that this spacing within the arguments brackets is going to be working is it's going to add spacing vertically for a VStack or horizontally for an HStack, right? So if I need more spacing vertically within my VStack, I can apply this custom spacing. You can go as high as you want. If I set this to be 200, they're flying off the screen. You can also do negative. Be careful, as you can see that the negative is actually going to make things clip in most scenarios. So use that one sparingly. You can also do custom alignments as well within this argument. I just want to point that out. For the HStack, we do have some different options here. So for the alignment, you're going to be looking at things like top, center, or bottom. Center is default for both VStack and HStack, by the way. And you can also do the custom alignments as well. So let's set this one to be top and then bottom. So you can see here, it's kind of shifting those elements around based on the alignment. And then center is how it would look by default. So let's talk about the modifiers that we can apply overall. And change this back to a VStack so it looks a little bit nicer. So we can apply modifiers to the entire stack, all the children within the stack. It feels weird to call them children, I don't know. Let's go ahead and add a frame here, and we can actually set a custom width, height, and even alignment. But I'm just going to do the width and height really quickly. So maybe we want our frame to only be 100 by 100. This is the maximum amount of space I want my view to take up. It's going to shrink things. There might be some clipping, there might be some trailing in the case of text that we can see here. But if we really want to take up a lot of space, we totally can. And now this entire area is dedicated to this VStack. So if I were to add another VStack beneath, add some text. We can see that the VStack afterwards is going to be below, remember, sequential order. And it's like, oh, I'm all the way down here because I'm getting pushed down. We're going to change this height, shrink it back down. We can really control how much space it's taking. You may also choose to include padding to apply to the entire view, and you can either do a certain type of padding, or you can add padding around the view as well. Some other ones to note are adding borders or even overlays. And you can really, customize your entire stack from there. Even corner radius, alignment guides, etc. So for the ZStack specifically, we still have some changes that we can make within the argument brackets. So you can still apply alignment, use dot notation again, and you have top, bottom, leading, trailing, and center, which is default. So if we were to kind of change this to be bottom leading, we'll see that our button gets pushed down to the bottom left. Bottom trailing should be bottom right. you get a little bit more customization of kind of where those elements are stacking upon each other, but that center is default. You can play around with these as much as you want to really augment where it is within this view that it's being kind of shifted. Just like with the VStack and HStack, it's only taking as much space up as it needs to. So when we put top, it's going to the top of the kind of bounds, which is this rectangle. If I were to change this height to be 300, it's going to adjust as need be. The modifiers are same as the VStack and HStack for padding, frame, background, etc. You can also use the alignment guide to customize really fine-tuned alignment behavior. And before we move on from the stacks, let's go ahead and talk about the LazyVStack and HStack. So these are really great, I think, in combination with scroll views or when you have really a lot of content on the screen. So right here, I just created a quick scroll view that's going to list through, 100 items, right? It goes through from 0 all the way to 99. If these were images and I went to go, load up this page, it's probably going to lag like crazy. Instead, what we can do is we can add lazy in front of our stack for the V and H stack. So if I were to change this to be LazyVStack, the difference is it's not going to render these items until they're needed. So this is really great for performance. Again, if these were 100 high-res images, oh my goodness, our phone is probably going to take a million years to boot. So what we're going to be doing is using that lazy, which basically says, okay, you don't need to render these things until they're absolutely necessary, which is really good for performance. So again, those list of items, try your best to use that LazyVStack or LazyHStack. Really quick honorable mentions are the grids, and we can even use a LazyV or HGrid in order to have spacing. So in this case, I actually have a fixed size on the columns, and this will allow us to really have control over the spacing of our grids and our columns, rows, etc. Right? See, in this scenario, we have it to be fixed. We can actually change this to be .flexible, add our empty parameters. And there we go. It's saying that, hey, this is going to be something that I'm able to have flexibility within the size, essentially expanding to fill any available space. Also works with the HGrid as well. I think for the HGrid though, we'll want some rows. So columns for vertical up and down, rows for left and right there. I would definitely rename this to be rows. Hold on, let's fix that so it looks a lot better. There we go. And there is also the .adaptive, and this is going to auto-fit as many items as possible across the screen width. So if you're doing something like a card guessing game, or you want a certain amount of study things on the screen, right? This is how you can kind of adjust those values with the adaptive size. These are pretty niche, so I won't be spending too much time talking about them, but I just wanted to show you these examples. Okay, now let's talk about dividers and spacers. So dividers at the very base kind of create these gray lines to separate different elements. They're kind of hard to see, in my opinion. This gray on white here is really difficult to see, but you can actually change the background color of them to adjust how they appear. So if we did the dot background and we put in a color, so let's do red, you'll see that it's a little bit easier to see. We can also adjust the frame in order to choose how kind of thick the divider is. So if I do frame and I do a height, we set this to be 4. It's going to add some space around it. If we were to set this to be 40, look at that, it's pushing all the elements around. Now, if we wanted to have even more control, I would say we wanted to add some padding, and maybe this one specifically is horizontal. We can use this to adjust so it's not taking up as much size on the kind of sides of the screen here. So I really like the horizontal padding for the dividers specifically. So if I really want it to match the text here, maybe we set to even something as 100, it's really going to shrink on the sides a lot more. So this is really great for separating any items. So in VStack, this is going to be a horizontal line, whereas in the HStack, it's actually going to be a vertical line. So kind of the opposite in order to show separation between those different items. And it's really hard to see, but you can add corner radius. Let's set this to be 12. It's like almost impossible to see on the dividers. Let's quickly take a quick look at the divider of the HStack we have down here. You can see here we have the divider separating the two things from left to right. I would probably add a background so you could see it a little bit more. Make this one blue. We can add a frame to adjust the height or the width as well. So if we were to set this width to be 4, we can make it really, really thick, right? I might actually want to adjust the height of this one because it's kind of taking up like way too much space on the screen. Maybe 100. There we go. Again, feel free to add padding. This one you might want to add vertical or horizontal or general padding. Totally up to you in your design. But I want you to be aware of these dividers because they're good for separating elements within a stack itself. Or we can even apply a divider. Here, let's get rid of these ones within the view first. We can even add a divider in between these different stacks as well. So it's going to split between the VStack and the HStack. Now, spacers are something that is really good in order to become a flexible, invisible view that expands as much possible within the stack's axis directions. So within this VStack, where we have above and below, if I put a spacer in here, it's going to basically say, okay, for all the room we have available left over in this view on this phone screen, I'm going to push things. So since we're in a VStack, it's taking above, pushing it up, and then the below pushing it down. We can do the exact same thing in the HStack here. And it's going to push it from left to right. It's going to space these things out as far as possible. So essentially pushing them to opposite ends of the screen. Now it looks pretty cursed, especially if we don't have a lot of things populating the screen. We can adjust this with a frame, however. So if I want for my VStack a certain height that it's pushing, maybe in this case 50, we'll wait for it to update. We can have precise control over how much spacer is kind of pushing those elements apart from each other. If you're making your screens adaptable for all phones or iPad, I would actually suggest not necessarily always using the frame. You totally can. You can also use minimum length, aka min length. I'm going to set this to be 40. Essentially, this won't allow it to shrink smaller than 40. So the more things that we add on this screen, it's kind of going to create a barrier that says you will go as far as you need to, but you will not shrink below this kind of spacing of 40. So this is a really great way if you need to have a certain amount of space always. Otherwise, it's going to push it to the total bounds of the screen. And here's just a quick example of an HStack with multiple spacers. So we have A all the way over here, B directly in the middle, and C all the way on the right side. Again, this is going to divide spaces equally between elements. We would add one more for, let's say, D. It's going to push things around equally. So divider, the line between views, customize it with frame, background, padding. You can do corner radius, but you can't really see it. And then the spacer, which is going to push views apart. And we can customize that with frame or min length. All right, and I'm saving the best for last. So thank you so much for sticking around. I'm going to be showing you the alignment guide. This is a very underutilized and underknown about feature in SwiftUI stacks. They actually let you override how child views align within a stack specifically. All right, here I have an example where I have short, much longer text and normal text again. And I have the entire VStack that's being pushed towards leading. But what if I want to take this much longer text and I want to align it super specifically? Well, we can use the dot alignment guide. Now we can put through here that we're starting off with leading. Then we're going to go ahead and add our braces. I would then put D in, go to the next line, D. I'm going to go ahead and add my array bracket, so that square bracket, and put dot trailing. So this is going to align this text trailing edge to the stack's leading. Okay, if we were to change this to say bottom, or perhaps the trailing, right? So it really gives you this finite control. I know it's a little bit confusing, but let's go ahead and break it down real quick. So the VStack has the leading alignment. Normally all items leading edges align, right? It's pushing everything to the left here. But for the much longer text, when we want to override it, we're saying, okay, instead of using my leading edge, use my trailing edge, right? Or whatever it is within these brackets, right? This result is going to be that the much longer text is shifted, so its trailing edge instead aligns with the other view's leading edge. So it's saying, okay, I want it to be based off of the leading edge of short and normal again, right? So you get this really, really finite control. I'm going to show you one more example. I find the HStack's pretty good for that custom offset as well. So here, the B big text aligns by its top edge, while A and C align by bottom. So you get this kind of staggered effect. So this is like super finite control and customization, but it's a cool thing to know. You can probably flex this to someone if you really want. Otherwise, that has been the stacks and divider spacers quick little tutorial. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more SwiftUI content. Otherwise, have a fantastic day, dream big, code bigger, and we'll see you in the next one.